Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast, slightly under the weather edition. Now, you may be wondering why I would do a podcast when I'm slightly under the weather. Well, because it actually leads into my first topic, which is over the last few days, I have been hit with just, at least I assume what it is seasonal allergies, just brutally. Itchy eyes, the sort of pain through the sinuses, just stuffy head, a lot of mucus and postnasal drip, which makes it really difficult to sleep and has caused a little bit of a sore throat. And if you see more jump cuts than usual in this particular podcast, it's because I was probably sniffling or sneezing or coughing or something like that. Anyhow, back to seasonal allergies. All of my life, I have had problems with seasonal allergies, spring and autumn. Pretty much I would be on Claritin from spring until snowfall. And since going keto, that has not been a problem. I haven't needed Claritin. I haven't had this going on. And I credit it to keto. I credit it to this, I credit a lot of the good stuff that goes on in my life to keto. But I was pretty certain that there was at the very least, there was a strong correlation in my mind between not having seasonal allergies and going keto. So why now, this year, over 4 years, probably getting close to 4.5 years of doing keto, am I having these issues? And I started thinking through, have there been any changes? Has there been anything different that I've been doing? And the thing that popped into my mind is the number of bread reviews that I've been doing recently. Keto or supposedly keto or keto-friendly or low-carb bread reviews. And all of these products seem to have some sort of a wheat-based ingredient. Not necessarily wheat flour, but maybe vital wheat gluten, which is actually a protein, or some form of wheat fiber, wheat dextrin, something like that, resistant wheat fiber. And what happens is, in addition to consuming them during the review, then likely, because I don't like to throw away food, I'll eat the rest of the loaf over the next handful of days. And I've done a lot of these reviews lately. So I have probably in the past couple of months consumed more bread or bread-like substances than I have in the previous 4 years. And while I've never really noticed anything in terms of gluten, any sort of a gluten sensitivity or inflammation related to gluten, as I said before, it's a protein, not a carb, some of these other ingredients, there seem to be an awful lot of wheat-type ingredients showing up in various products lately that are either supposedly resistant or supposedly a fiber, and I found that in some instances it had no impact at all on my blood glucose, so maybe it was, in fact, a fiber or resistant or something. But whether or not it's affecting my glucose, my hypothesis is that perhaps it's doing something else to me. And that then is manifesting itself in the reoccurrence of my seasonal allergies. Now, before I continue on this topic, because this eventually leads to something, I want to share another little story for you, and they do, in fact, connect. The other day, I was sitting on the couch in my living room, looking at my iPhone, probably reading YouTube comments, and my 4-year-old grandson, Colton, came in and said, "Grandpa, is it okay to pee in the bathtub?" And I said, "Sure, if you gotta go." And he seemed pretty happy with that answer. Maybe a little bit too happy in retrospect. So he walked off down the hallway, and I sat there and continued to look at my phone for a moment and thought, maybe I should go check in on Colton and see what he's up to. I went to the bathroom, and he was standing at the side of the tub with his pants down, peeing into the tub. So apparently he felt that when he asked, is it okay to pee in the tub, he meant in general, not necessarily when you're taking a bath. But that is my fault. Because I was so eager to give an answer, I was so eager to be authoritative and smart that I didn't dig in to the details. I didn't try and get more information. Now here is where these two topics link. I think very often people, whether they are leaving comments on the internet or whether they are content creators, so-called gurus. I certainly hope I never come off as someone who thinks that he's a guru, because I'm not. But these people like to give sort of one-size-fits-all answers. And maybe these answers are based on their own personal experience. If, for example, I find that soybean oil causes me inflammation, it makes my joints hurt, I can't really go out and say soybean oil is bad for everybody. I kind of think it is, but I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to be the ingredient police. I try and couch it in my experience. I say, oh boy, this contains soybean oil. Generally, that's not an ingredient I want to eat because it causes me inflammation. As I said though, other people don't necessarily couch it within their own experience. They don't take the time to understand that different people are different. Different people have different food sensitivities. Different people have different allergies. Different people have different tastes. And to get out in the comments and start telling people, no, you shouldn't eat that, or you have to eat this, or you shouldn't do it that way, based purely on your own experience or based on what some other content creator says. Maybe it's a doctor, a medical doctor, maybe a chiropractor, maybe a bodybuilder, maybe somebody wearing surgical scrubs, or maybe they have a whiteboard or something. They are one data point, just as I am one data point. When I do blood glucose testing, for example, that's just me. I'm not testing your blood glucose. I'm testing mine. I'm just a data point. It's something that you can take into consideration and maybe make a decision on. When I tell you something affects me poorly in terms of food or inflammation or allergies, if it turns out that this wheat thing is what's causing these seasonal allergies, that is one data point. But what I encourage all of you to do is really two things. First off, if you feel that a food item is affecting you poorly, just eliminate it for a while. Confirm your suspicion. And the second thing is just try and be a little more empathetic and understanding that, as I said before, different people are different. And what affects you may not affect other people. What may spike your glucose may not spike the glucose of someone else. What may cause you inflammation may not cause inflammation to someone else. What causes you gastrointestinal issues may not cause issues to someone else. Me personally, on the gastrointestinal thing, that's xylitol. I just can't do it. But many people swear by xylitol. So I'm not going to police xylitol. I'm just going to call out, oops, this contains xylitol, not for me. So just to be clear, what I am not saying is don't talk about ingredients. I'm not telling you you cannot talk about ingredients. I'm not going to label you the ingredient police unless you act like the ingredient police. And you can avoid acting like the ingredient police by stating things in terms of your own experience. You can say, in my experience, ... whatever you have to say about an ingredient. And certainly in terms of this whole wheat product thing, I'll let you know what my experience is after I go a couple of weeks without eating any sort of breads or tortillas or anything that may have something that has the word wheat in it, and I'll let you know if I'm feeling any better. This next topic has the potential, I think, to offend maybe a few people. I'm going to try not to, but it still has that potential. I think nowadays some people are just looking to be offended. So guess what? Some of you may be offended. And the topic is carnivores. Now, in the first year or so of this channel, I found that the comments that I got from carnivores were really pretty chill. They were very positive, very sort of soft sell. It would be like, hey, if you like keto, if you think you're feeling better on keto, you should totally try out carnivore for a couple of weeks or a month. Trust me, you're going to feel great. It was all sort of that sort of vein, that sort of spirit. What I've noticed though over time, especially within the last 6 months to a year, the climate has shifted a bit in terms of comments that I get from carnivores to a lot more anger and hostility and self-righteousness and the ingredient policey thing that I talked about before. Really very much a holier than thou sort of attitude. And it's not all that cool, to be honest with you. Now, I know that I have a lot of subscribers and even some paid channel members who are carnivores, and they've always been super duper cool. So these could just be some random people, random carnivores sort of floating in, but I see the same behavior as well out on other channels. I see it on Facebook. I see it on Reddit. Just carnivores have gotten to be a little bit ornery lately. I don't know if it's the price of meat. I'm kind of irritated by that too. But what I would like to see is less of that. And for those of you who are carnivore, whether you have any influence over the carnivore community and other user groups that maybe you're in, maybe you can get some of these folks to chill back out a smidge. Because whenever somebody is overzealous, or they're pushing things too hard, or they're being a jerk and they're telling you that you're doing it wrong, that's a turnoff. That does not make me remotely interested in trying out carnivore ever. I'm far better swayed by that initial type of comment that I talked about. The people that say, I tell you what, just try it out. Try it out for just a week and see what you think. And maybe I will at some point, but not this week. My next topic is family related, but I'm going to spin it back to all of you at the end. And that is this past Saturday, am I pointing the right direction for you? This past Saturday was Connor's graduation from college. And it was a very, very proud moment for me. I'm sure it is for all parents, but all the more so, I think, for me because of the circumstances around it. So 5 years ago, the day after Connor graduated from high school, he was kind of following me around the house like a lonely puppy, and eventually said, Dad, I've got something I got to tell you. Jaden and I are pregnant. Actually, Jaden was more pregnant than he was, but you get the point. And when you hear that news from your 17-year-old son, it's a bit of a soul punch. You're going to wrestle with some emotions, and I did. I definitely did. I didn't know what was going to happen. And already 2018 was being a pretty rough year for me, and it would continue to be so. But this was sort of one of the defining moments. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how exactly to handle it, but I knew that we would handle this as a family. And I could have never predicted 5 years ago that things would have turned out the way they did. Connor went off to college, and then there was the global pandemic and everything sort of shut down. That created some weirdness. Basically, we wound up having Jaden and Colton living with us for a good part of a year or more. And then Connor moved back home from school, and they were there, so we had a big family. We were no longer empty nesters. We were a multi-generational household. And there were times that was tough, but there were a lot of times it was pretty wonderful. And then Connor decided that he would go into the Army so that he could pay for college, not graduate with a bunch of debt, and be more prepared to start his life as a father and to have a family. So he went away for a year into the Army and then came back. He had enough money to pay for college. He finished his college. He had enough money to put a down payment on a house along with Jaden. And, basically he wound up, for all intents and purposes, graduating from college with his degree in business in 3.5 years, because he spent a year in the Army. And then he graduated back in December. So it was 4.5 years minus the 1 year in the Army. Oh, I hope this math all makes sense. Anyhow, I'm super proud of him. That's what it comes down to. I'm super duper proud of my son, and I am so thrilled at how this one event that at the moment seemed really pretty horrible, pretty unbelievable to me, has turned out to be so wonderful and so magical. And I love being a grandpa. And I love playing with my grandson, Colton. He is absolutely the light of my life. And I said that I would bring this back to you because I'm not the only person to have faced adversity. All of us have faced adversity. I suspect that a number of you found your way to keto because of some adversity, because of weight, overall health, something along those lines. There was probably a wake-up call moment. There was some moment where you just felt like life is crap and you are crap and what am I going to do? A feeling of hopelessness, maybe. And you found your way to keto. And some of you have been on this journey a while and you have seen your life improve. You've seen your health improve in so many different ways. Others of you maybe are still very new on this journey and you need someone to help reinforce your faith that this is all going to turn out. And that's what I want to do here, is tell you that very often it's these instances of adversity, these tough times, these challenges that bring out the best in us, that show us our true character. And I hope that you stick around with keto, because you will feel the benefits if you haven't already. And you will look back on that one moment, that defining moment that made you decide to make a lifestyle change, and you'll realize it wasn't the horrible thing you thought it was at the moment. It was one of the best things that could have happened to you. Now, for the final part of this podcast, what I want to do is ask you for a little bit of help. I'm running out of podcast topics. Sometimes I'm pretty good on any given week. Some weeks I really struggle. But I would like to have a good backlog of podcast topics. So this is your opportunity. Let me know down in the comments. Do you have any questions for me? Are there just things you would like to know? Maybe I could just do a short Q&A session on every podcast if they are short questions. But if they're longer, bigger topics, maybe it's something like, what are your thoughts on net carbs versus total carbs? Although that's probably bigger than a podcast. That's probably like a separate episode of pragmatic keto or keto for beginners. But if you've got questions related to keto, related to health, related to exercise, related to what I do personally in terms of working out, how often I eat, or anything like that, something that might be a good podcast topic, please let me know down in the comments below. And with that, I'm going to sign off and probably go take some Claritin. As always, thanks for watching. That's the hybridization of listening and watching. Thanks for watching.